Welcome, everyone. We have 2 more people entering the room, and we're almost ready to start our 4th session of the day, the Artgames Showcase. And for this session, we have Pablo Quarta. And I have known Pablo for quite a while now. They are a terrific person and a key character, I can say that, in the Argentinian and art games community. Pablo is a narrative designer and game producer, among diverse hats. They were co-founders of Mata Juegos and the producer behind that well. Also, Pablo had been part of Gaia since the very first edition back in 2019, and always with a different hat. Today, I'm so happy that they are as a host. You can read more about them in the chat, and I will hand it over to you now, Pablo.
Thank you so much, Lou. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Gaia 2024 Art Game Showcase. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm very happy to be able to host this panel, and I'm honored to introduce you to our wonderful set of speakers for today. Today, we will hear from Mario Barranco, Isabel Arvers Livia Diniz, Nico Valdivia Hennig, and perhaps also from Samuel Bayrou. They will each give us a short presentation on one of their latest games or projects, and then we will come together for a short Q&A session at the end of our meeting. So please, while you're listening to the speakers, you're watching their presentations, start thinking about which questions you might want to ask them once they all wrap up. And please leave those in the chat so I can read them off later. Our first speaker for today is Mario Barranco. Mario has a bachelor's degree in social and cultural anthropology, a master's in contemporary film and audiovisual studies, and a PhD in communication. He is part of the cinema research group at Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona and has both coordinated and edited international academic journals on video games and cinema. Currently, he combines his duties as a university professor with his work as a digital artist and game designer in experimental video game projects. You can find out more about Mario from his bio in the chat. And today he will be speaking to us about his abstract and meditative art game, Maya. Please, Mario.
Thank you. Many thanks to Pablo for the presentation. It is an immense honor for me to be here as part of Gaia. My sincere thanks to Han Olton for the invitation and to the rest of the organization for giving me the opportunity to share a bit of my experience with this project. First of all, I must apologize because I am really nervous and my English is quite unpracticed and rusty. So I ask for your patience if my phrasing or pronunciation is not very good, but here we go. Throughout my teaching and academic career, I have always been interested in experimenting with poetic and non-textual modes of theoretical production, such as video essays, performative lectures, interactive documentaries. I think there is a whole ecology of very interesting practices that hybridize theory and fiction. And for me, video games represent another medium that can adopt the tones and codes of the nonfiction essay. Actually, in recent years, there are theorists like Stefano Gualeni who have talked about using virtual worlds as philosophical tools, or Ricardo Fassoni, who has proposed the notion of the Ludo essay to describe video games and autobiographical and non-fictional content. So for my part, I have explored these possibilities, the notion of a playable essay, in my PhD project, approaching this contemporary ethos between the academic and the artistic from a broader perspective. For example, in my research, I have been studying para-academic practices such as deformative criticism. It's an approach that experiments with applying rules and algorithms to text documents, images, and films, with the goal of deforming them. For example, subtracting elements, removing characters, backgrounds, objects from a video, or converting films into three-dimensional volumes or 3D objects, things like that. And the purpose of these deformations is to force the emergence of strange meanings and unforeseen patterns in analysis of movies, literary texts, and so on. So in my case, I was looking into these distortions and their aesthetic results, and at the same time, I was obsessively reading a lot of Gilles Deleuze's film philosophy. So I found it really interesting, the concept of creating a virtual world where I could use these deformed films to create artifacts, objects, and environments in a video game. This video game could also be my way of engaging with the philosophy I was reading, but in a practical way. So, and from that came the prototype, which was the practical part of my doctoral research. And I will be showing some images of it in the background. Okay. Wait a moment. Okay. Yes. Perfect. This is a prototype of an art game that uses this kind of deformative techniques to create an ecosystem of films that have become sculptures, buildings, mountains, animals, and objects of all kinds. In Maya, objects are created from their past lives in other media. A staircase, for example, or a platform could be structures made from sequences by Godard or twisted fragments from Joan of Arc. Many elements are made from encrypted film and video, and that was the concept for me. A video game where every element could be a hidden, deformed, and unrecognizable movie from the past. And in this sense, I think as opposed to the whole idea of the death of the author, the project reflects more on the death of the spectator, because in this unhuman virtual world, images no longer exist to be consumed. The player can only wander through these degraded and deformed films, accepting that the images are somehow automating their own recontextualization without us. So that is the concept of this Ludo essayistic prototype, which mixes aesthetic experimentation and theoretical reflection. Yes. And yes, I think that's all. I hope I have adjust to the time, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mario. Yes, you're very much on time. Thank you so much. That was fascinating. If you have any questions for Mario, please do leave them in the chat, and I'll read them off at the end of our session. Our next speakers are Isabel Arvers and Livia Diniz. Isabelle is a French artist and curator who has been putting on shows and festivals all across the world for over 20 years. And in 2019, she embarked on an art and games world tour to promote gender, sexuality, and geographic diversity, focusing on queer, feminist, and decolonial practices. Livia is a prolific Brazilian creative director, researcher, and producer who develops collaborative projects in the audiovisual, live, and participatory arts. She has designed carnival parades for samba schools, art and technology labs for the creation of playful spaces, and much, much more. You can find out more about Isabel and Livia from the bios in the chat. And today they will be speaking about their new joint project, the Green Games Pedagogical Kit. Please, Isabel and Livia.
Thank you. So I will share my screen and we will do a presentation together with Livia. Livia.
Hello all. Hi. Good night. Good afternoon. So we're here to present the Green Game Pedagogical Kit, the project that Isabella and I have joined forces to work together in the past few years, crossing our knowledges, our different networks to build this project, which is disruptive. It is low tech and it's a creative educational proposal to raise an awareness about the environment. So the idea is to use green games and to co-create green games with different communities all around the world. So Isabel and I have had these experiences in many places of co-creating different spaces and technological and playful initiatives with different communities. So we would like to adopt animist and native people's perspectives within this Green Games Pedagogical Kit and use games that have been developed with responsibility, with less technology, more diversity, less competitive, and more collaborative.
So this Green Games Pedagogical Kit is developed for any kind of young audiences and educators. And at first, because it's a 10 years project, but at first we will start with 10 independent games because the main idea is to change the demand for different types of video games in the younger audiences. So with these 10 games, there will be also 3 types of workshops, activities in this kit. First, augmented walks. So the idea is to do like sound, images, recordings, but also 3D scans of trees, of stones, and then from these walks to see how we can integrate these elements inside machinima, movies made with green games as well, and mixing with the recordings we will do during the walks. And finally, the third activity will be like game design workshops in order to co-create these games, and but also to see how we can integrate all the elements we found during the walks inside game mechanics, game maps. So here are some examples of this, what we call green games, even if it's a bit like a big word to speak about games that are taking the point of view of natural elements, or which are like dealing with the environment or climate change issues. But what we want to do is to work with individuals like Daniela Fernandez or Laura Palevicino from Colombia, or the game artist Afrane Makov from Ghana, and also different other game studio from countries of the South. This project is inspired by some previous workshop we gave or we participated in. For example, this workshop was intended to kids, teenagers, and their parents. And during 1 week, we went in the river, in the mountains, and from this walk, we started to imagine games that were related to these walks. In somehow the same way, we were in Martinique last year, and during a workshop at the Caribbean Art School, we visited a big medicinal plants écolieu, Tivoli, in Fort-de-France. And from that experience and this experimentation and this physical experimentation, students were able to create machinimas or games inspired by or ancestral knowledge or natural elements. And the last thing that also influenced the way we imagine this kit is this experience we did in Senegal in 2022, doing a lot of 3D scans of baobabs, big trees, and then using them to create machinima like the machinima Infinity or the machinima Liquid Forest.
Yeah, what motivated us was the fact that kids are really dreaming in video games. That's what they dream about at night. And that's what they dream about throughout the day. They're at school, but they're thinking about the time they're going to get home to play video games. And the idea is to change their perspective, show them different kinds of video games, and co-create video games with different communities, co-create video games with First Natives and Quilombolas communities. We also intend to co-produce games with Sub-Saharan games studios, and we are in the process of developing and testing. So you're all super welcome to join on board with us in this experience. You want to say anything else?
It's really a call to collaboration, co-work, and please welcome on board. And we are just at the start of this project, starting to experiment it in France and hopefully in Brazil soon. So then we want to spread it everywhere. Let's change the demand for video games. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Isabelle and Livia. That was really fascinating. Our next speaker is Nico Valdivia Hennig. Nico is a Chilean game designer, psychologist, and cultural studies researcher with a decade of experience in game design. They're one of the co-founders of the game studio Niebla Games and are currently a PhD candidate in Hispanic Studies at the University of California, Riverside, where they focus on ludic activism, game design, and production in the Global South, particularly in Latin America. And they are also an artist in residence at the Speculative Play and Just Futurities program at Indiana University. You can find out more about them from their bio in the chat. Today, Nico will be speaking about their critically acclaimed game, Hawk and Puma. Please, Nico, take it away.
Thank you so much, Pablo. Thank you so much, everyone here, for putting all this together and for all this such a great community of awesome people who are passionate about this art and creative endeavor. So today I'm going to have the pleasure to share with you our project of Niebla Games called Hawk and Puma. So Hawk and Puma, it's a video game based on the work and life of the indigenous chronicler from the Andes, Guamán Poma de Ayala, Felipe Guamán Poma de Ayala. And before I talk a little bit about his life and work, I'm going to show you 30 seconds of the trailer of this minimal game based on Guamán. So that was the present. Oh, sorry. There we go. So Guamán Poma was an historical figure, a chronicler from the Andes of this period of transition when the European colonizers got into the Andean region on the Inca Empire. He was taught by Jesuits, priests, so he was a figure that was super important on the translation and also like to create a testimony of this change of paradigms through a letter addressed to the King Philip III. So Guamán is famous for his work New Chronicle, the New Chronicle and Good Government, who was a letter of 1,000 pages addressed to the King Philip III of Spain, denouncing the abuses that the Europeans were imposing to the indigenous peoples of the Americas. This is a letter of 1,000 pages written in ink with 400 hand-drawn illustrations. And it's fascinating because this work was lost for centuries and it was rediscovered on the 1900s by a German scholar on the Royal Danish Library. Or like there's such a great story and so many mysteries around this work. And now we have it, and even you can go and check it out on the Royal Danish Library website. It's free available, and it's fascinating on how this, like one of the oldest pieces of sequential art that we may find in the Americas, has so much to say, and it's so important on like to think our present and our future too. And that's how this research creation process on Hawk and Puma starts as how to take Guamán's work through ink, on the importance that he gives to daily practices of care like weaving, and the importance that have to the community, to bring it to the present through pixels. That's supported with a theoretical framework on the colonial thought, especially with Silvia Rivera Cusicanqui, who may not be that happy with that label sometimes, taking her concept on the Cheje, an Aymara word for spotted, that it's an invitation to recognize our contradiction instead of thinking us as just a great continue, we're spotted and we're different things. And I wanted to think about women's work through this spotted on my own positionality as a Latin American artist and activist, thinking on women's work through also the questionings of Western conceptions of power. So Woman lived at the same time or about the same time with Niccolo Machiavelli. That's fascinating. And also both of them were addressing their work to the nobility. Woman to the King Philip III and Niccolo Machiavelli to Lorenzo de Medici or the prince. That's the metaphor. And both were writing about good governance. So in the game, we go with Woman and we see the questioning of these Western perspectives through the spirit called Maki, who is a representation of Machiavelli in this work. So the game was made with Bitsy, a super awesome minimal tool to create games. And with help of tools made by the community, I was able to take the illustrations of Woman and to give a digital treatment to bring them to this pixel aesthetics, combining this idea of the materiality of ink, weaving, and pixel in this small game. And an important thing of this project is that it was made with collaboration of members of the Ñaupañan community in the Sacred Valley of the Incas, Kenia Chavez Caguana, Cesar Sicos Yucra, Jessica Sicos Yucra, who we started like a cultural consulting that became a further collaboration. Thanks to that, now we have the game in Quechua, English, and in Spanish. And even better than that, now we started a further collaboration with their community, with the Cusicausay Andean Association. Now we're going to conduct some ludic workshops with the community in a future project that I hope that I could share about in a future version of this called Andean Futures, where the youth of the Sacred Valley of the Incas, they're going to be able to create their own minimal games with these open source tools. So that's it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Nico. We were supposed to have one more presentation from Samuel Baidu, but I believe they were not able to make it. So without further ado, we can pass on to the Q&A portion of our session. If anybody has any questions, please leave them in the chat and I'll read them out loud. They can be about anything, this is a very conversational space, it's a very horizontal space. So let's allow this conversation to flow in a lot of ways. I have some questions, I have some thoughts, but I'm also curious, Isabel, Mario, Nico, Olivia, now that you've heard each other's presentations, I wonder if you have any questions or any thoughts for one another, since you're very engaged in this space.
Yeah, I have to say that I really appreciate your presentation, Mario. Sorry, I wasn't there for the rehearsal, so I discovered it today. And yeah, I'm so much in love with your games and Nico, this project about the Emara perspective. I don't know if you want to deal with decolonization, but it was really like part of my reflection. Could we use Emara concepts to better think about decolonization? And so to see your game and to be able to play to it is really amazing, and we share this will to work with the communities, and I think there is something there. It's not really a question, but
Nico, do you want to respond to that, Nico?
Yeah, no, I just want to say like how awesome is to know all these projects. Mario, it's the first time that also I have the pleasure to know about your work. It's amazing, and also with Isa, we had like so many backgrounds in common that when we were like sharing the projects, it was impressive on how beautiful it is to see that every time there's more people doing things, and something that for me it's fundamental and part on how we can start thinking on games as art and games as culture and as critical practices, on the importance on collaboration from such a small detail on, okay, Livia should be here also, like it's a collaborative project, they should be together, like small details like that, or thinking about like a game kit on how to approach. It's not like sadly we're in a world where everything it's forced to turn into individual, and now we're in a huge great assembly where we can reflect and think about that. and encourage and to promote the collaboration as the one of starting point to work. And that's something that I've been dealing with in my research, like starting from analyzing the Latin American game production context on ludic activism and indigenous participation on the game production. My analysis tended to, like, I needed to express my analysis through practical experiences. And that's how, like, this Hawk and Puma first experience was a first approach. And now it's the need of thinking in collaboration, not just as me being an author proposing something in particular. It's like me as academic and also an activist trying to open spaces to think together, especially on those spaces where there's not been that much space to explore, or even to make the question, do I, like, even before, like, do I want to create games to express something about us, about me, etc.
Yeah, there's a common thread that I've seen between all these works, and it is very much this thing that you mentioned, Nico, which Mario was also talking about, the idea of putting into practice theories and concepts and philosophies. You know, on one side decolonial work, on the other side, you know, these sorry, there's a very loud truck just right by. These philosophical ideas that you were talking about, Mario, and putting them into practice through games as a medium of you know, seeing them in action and putting them into action into the real world, and to adapt real world issues and philosophical and theoretical issues into the real world. And it seems that, at least for some of you, I don't want to say all because I don't know, that kind of your academic research and your academic work is very much tied to your video game and your artistic practice, which is not always a common thread in when we look at artistic video games. Sometimes they don't come necessarily from an academic or a research background. And I'm curious for all of you, you know, what your relationship is there and how that informs the kind of games you make, perhaps, or the audiences that you seek through your games.
Yeah, totally. I'm really impressed. For me, it's wonderful to be surrounded by this kind of projects, this kind of people, and I really love the projects of Isabel, Nico, Livia, and I'm really, I think we share like a common background and a common interest in explore the synergies between video games and topics related to social issues, social problems, decolonization, essays. And I don't know, I think it's, I believe these recent interesting formats, alternative formats such video essay games or ludo essay games, I think is a part of a general obsession with finding new ways of relating to knowledge. Or I think the essay has always been a genre marked by subjectivity and poetic speculation. And I believe that in essays, the subjectivity of the voice is very important, but we are also in a moment where we are looking for new forms of essayistic and social subjectivities, no? And I think perhaps these subjects far from the more traditionally humanist voices. I think here, for example, the video game expands the possibilities of the traditional essay, for example, by creating some kind of kinesthetic, haptic knowledge with textures, with little interactive details. And for me, for example, I think we can learn a lot from speculative digital art. I think, for example, of Amy Ireland work with what she calls xeno poetry. In one of her projects, she takes poems and transforms them through transcription and encryption, and then turns them into 3D sculptures that look like flowers. So this kind of this work with encoding reminds me that the formative techniques I explore, for example, in my PhD thesis. No, And I think all these possibilities create new ways of interacting with cultural objects. And I believe video games are perhaps the medium that give us more speculative possibilities of this kind. And I think this is important for anthropology, for example. No?
Yeah, I wanted to add that knowing that Livia and I, we are activists. We've been activists for a long time. This project really ended my PhD, but I could say almost our, because Livia was totally part of of the PhD writing and thinking but when you think about trying to decolonize the imaginary, when you start to try to think about decolonizing games, it's also the way you are doing it and with who and how you are doing things with the communities. So I think really this project, our project, is the result of all this process, because it's first a personal process and then a collective process. And for us, it was a beautiful way to go on with the art and game world too, and then all the person we encountered. And yeah, I don't know if you want to add something, Livia.
Yeah, sure. Well, I come from the carnival. I'm from Rio. So we have huge carnival parades with 26,000 kids. And I've been working with that and their families for 12 years. And then when I started making carnival around the world, I started noticing maybe carnival wasn't the thing that was really going to attract kids, you know? So it's also about having the video game as a medium to get out of the video game and be together in the streets and be together passing a message, because that is what our carnival parades, our samba schools are all about. It's about passing on a message and everybody working together to build that little thing, the little thing you glue, the little thing you create or co-create with the communities. When Isabel says that we've been activists on this, on education and children and youngsters imaginary, I've been working with samba schools for kids, and in there it's all about that. Here in Rio, it's about bringing back these narratives that were not told, that are not told in the didactic, in the books at school. So how do we bring raise attention about environmental issues and really rewrite our own past? So
Absolutely. I'm curious to know more about kind of the experiences that you've had in workshops, with Nico with your project and Isabel and Livia with your project. Having workshops with the communities it seems like a central part beyond the games and beyond the pedagogical part is, getting them involved and reaching back, and for there to be, a part of this that exists in the real world and in a social way, in a community way. And I'm curious what those experiences have been like so far in your work.
Nico maybe first, and I will.
Okay, so in my experience, I've been conducting workshops with people with no previous experience on game design. The workshops with the Ñaupañan community with the youth of the PISAC community are going to start in November, but so far I'm excited because they're excited too. Like of course, I offer this as a collaboration. It went further to coordinate with the directors of this association, and it takes time to plan a trip to the Sacred Valley, especially now living so far. And like last week we had a meeting, and it was like, yeah, a huge motivation on knowing that the children there are like asking, when are we going to have this like game creation workshops? And so far I've been starting more actively to conduct this and to open spaces of creation with people, for people with no previous experiences, using Bitsy, Downpour, Twine, as a way to discuss and think about the gatekeeping that exists on so many levels, on that what Pablo you said before about the research. Like all of us here had some relation with academia as a privileged space where we can think about things and then to feel this urgency to do things with those researchers. That's of course what we have in common. And something that I've been thinking that it's huge when doing some ludic workshops, it's also to invite the participants to think about themselves as research, and all of artists use research on their work. And it's important to put like to again to break those gates for all those gatekeepers. So no, who are the game artists, who are the researchers, who are the technology makers. Like we have the tools to like put down those barriers, to start like all of us are whatever we want, and we can start from scratch. We can start from tools of giants that help us with those huge like great tools, open source, so we can discuss about property, we can discuss about values on collaboration. When I'm doing this game, and that's why for me it's so important when I'm presenting and talking about Hog and Puma in particular, to talk about like it's something that Niebla as a team allowed me to do as an experiment. It's something that I've done as a collaboration with members of the community, and also I'm always pointing that I don't believe on the solo developer. I think that it's a terrible myth. Like as we need to destroy the author, now we can problematize the spectators, as Mario was sharing, and it's important to think about the terrible myth of the solo dev. Like no one did everything that it's involved. Even if someone gives you feedback, oh, I think that this should be a little bit higher or slow, sometimes those small changes makes everything, or the languages that are used to code, etc. So like pointing to those tools, especially when those tools are made to foster maybe they don't even knew where this was going to end, and now we have the opportunity to use those tools to push even further, not only on the game design aspect, but to the whole creative potential that interactive media can give.
Yeah,
Thank you, Nico.
and to go on with what you were saying, the main point is when you give the tools and how can I say, the kids or the teenagers are the rulers. Even more than researcher, they are the one who are going to teach us. That's very common in our practice, Livia and I. Really, we believe that the kids, the teenagers are our teachers. And from that moment, we can start. It's also a question of a lot of respect to what they love, because most of the time when you work with games, the first feedback is, are we allowed to play so it's really a change of behavior already, because you are starting from another point of view, and it really makes them think. So what we intend to do also with this workshop is to make them think about what our tools are made of, which conflicts are related to extractive economy, and also what is their relationship to the tools they are using, when they will get rid of them. And again, it will go back to the same countries where the mineral were extracted. And so they are at the command, and it's a very, as you said, it's a very good occasion to think about values, but also to think about the materiality of the games, and to see politically the fact of playing games. So because depending the games you play, it has a very different meaning politically. So it's a political issue, and so far it's been amazing to work with kids and teenagers. And when you asked the question, I was also thinking about a workshop I gave in a prison, and I had the same kind of feedback saying that's the first time I hear that I can get skills, that I am skilled in video games. If only I knew that I was skilled and I was not just a piece of what the society gave the feedback to me. So yeah, that's and also when I understood you were about to work with the Mara community. When I was like writing the PhD, I was looking for workshop or activities around games or informations around games in the MRA community. And the only articles I found were like big problems between the parents and the kids, and also like parents trying to get the kids out of the game centers. So I think it will be great for you to work with these kids and to to find another way to make them creative and yeah.
Yeah,
And
also
like
about
punished.
taking from that, I was at the Azores Islands. We were doing a project and I was focused on dreaming, on children's dreaming. And then I said, oh, there's this game from Mexico. It's based on the community in Mexico that believes that you can do shape-shifting while dreaming, and then you turn into different animals. And then I started playing with one of the kids, and then I sent it to his mother. I was like, come on, come play. And he was like, I can't believe mom's gonna play with me. That's what I've always wanted. I've never imagined that mom was gonna play with me. Mom, I've always wanted that in my life, that you played with me. And I was like, wow, yeah, there is a gap there about also affection and relationship between parents and kids. And how do we accept their world, we accept what they love, and let's play with it.
Thank you so much, Isabel, Livia, and Nico, for answering that question. We only have 2 minutes left. I don't know if we ever got it. I think that the chat has been very silent and very attentive, which I thank you. I thank you for. But I think we're gonna have to wrap it up. So if I could, these last 2 minutes, if to thank the speakers one more time for their presentations and for answering these questions. And I don't know if any of you have just one brief final thought to share with the rest of the group before we close. I don't know if Mario, if there's anything you want to say before we leave.
I don't know. For me, it's I don't know. It's beautiful, and I'm with a lot of energy right now for the future, for future conversations, and I have my mind totally explode. Really. Thank you so much.
Likewise, I feel exactly the same way, and I hope that everybody else in the group also feels this way. One more time, thank you all of you for your presentations, for sharing your great projects and games with us, and thanks to everyone, to our great audience for being here and for participating in Gaia this year. We'll see you at the next session, which is a very exciting one. Thank you.